Hello, and welcome back to another post-commentary video on Space Marine 2. And in this video, I'm going to talk about uh, this hard mode mission that I did for the weekly and got my 200 requisition points. And then also update you on my newest project for my miniatures, which is going to be the Deathwing Knights. And to start off with the mission here, you may have noticed that, it said I had a teammate coming into this match. Well, I did a little bit of a split here on the video because I got about halfway through this mission with a teammate, and then they filled in, and we just got overwhelmed in the middle of the map. We had a Neuron in the sky. I think it was like 2 lictors and a couple of other things, and one teammate was going down often. He was only like level 5 on the bulwark. I don't think he was prestiged. I didn't notice, but I do know that he was going down pretty fast. And without all 3 of us, working together, we were getting kind of overwhelmed with all the action that was happening. So, I switched over here to this character, and I switched over to this mission. I just started it off by myself and figured, I can just use the AI teammates and just be very aggressive and make sure enemies are going down fast, because I feel like that was kind of the name of the game, was just kill them before they can group up. And it was pretty cool, this game mode, where every execution gives you your health back. So and then also the more you spam your melee, the more melee damage you'll do, up to 300%. So I also went with the power axe here, and my idea was that it swings pretty fast, it has pretty good wide arcs, and I think this was also the fencing variant, so I would be able to get a lot of those off. That was my plan, with the axe, just be very aggressive, stack the bonus, and just go in. I did get a teammate that loaded in this mission. I think we're gonna get another one here pretty soon. I won't lie, I do feel like I was playing kind of like greedy, playing a little bit, like uncooperative. I wouldn't say uncooperative, but I definitely wasn't using like teammate tactics. I wasn't being the most, you know, I wasn't being a good teammate. I could tell from time to time. And you'll see, like, with stuff like this where, the Neuron will go down, and, the execute should have went to a teammate, but since I was right there, I took it, and stuff like that will happen. Let me jump over to the blog section over here with my miniatures, and I'm already, starting the Deathwing Knights. Here was a picture of how I, separated them all out. I'm pretty excited to start this army. So I missed my combat patrol, but there is another local game store that does an incursion league, and it's like a step-up league. So you play like a full round of incursion, and if you win, or I don't know, if you place high enough, you get to come back and do like a 2,000 point game, and it goes from there. So I haven't ever rolled dice, and so they told me, to come on in, in a couple weeks when they restart their bracket or something like that, and they'll teach me how to play. So I said, if right now I have about 985 points, so, or 885 points if I finish these Deathwing Knights. So they said bring them on over, and we can have a friendly game, and we can show you kind of how it goes. You bring your rule book, and we can walk you through things, make sure you're playing the game correctly. So I actually have a little bit of a time limit here to get these Deathwing Knights rolled out. So another quick little update here is I found this really cool paint station holder here. They had it at that hobby store. It was definitely something that they must have stopped carrying. It was like hidden in the back. I just liked it a lot. They were definitely using it as like a paintbrush holder. And so but it wasn't like, you could tell it was like for paintbrushes that got like picked up and put back down. So I took all the paintbrushes out and I picked this up, and I walked it over the register along with the new paintbrush and my paint here that I'll show you in a second. And I said, hey, I want to buy this. And they were like, where the hell did you find this? And I was like, it was on the shelf. And they were like, you know, and they didn't have a sticker on it, didn't have a, so they like looked up in their system for, you know, deluxe paint cup or something like that, and it came out to like 20 bucks. And I said, sure, you know, I'll pay that. And yeah, so just, you know, kind of happy about this whole thing. And I got to work on my Deathwing Knight, so I can already show you progress. You know, I ended up spraying them down with Gracier because I used up all my Chaos Black, and I probably used it too fast, but you know, here I am. You know, and so I bought Engine Sear Gray Primer, and the reason I did that is because I'm gonna try the Zenithal method on my wife's Blood Angels here soon, but first I gotta finish this these Deathwing Knights. And then I air sprayed on Ushapti Bone as the base layer, and then I did Seraphim Sepia as a shade, and I did a little bit of a stippling method, the same thing I did with my Blade Guard veterans that I painted for my combat patrol. So all that's the same, and it came out really good. But the only thing that was bothering me, and I'll pull up a picture right here of a Blade Guard veteran foot, is that I don't really see a nice transition between Ushapti Bone and Screaming Skull, you know, in which I was using as the edge highlight. And then I went with White Scar on other areas to give that a highlight as well. The second highlight with the White Scar. And so because I didn't really like the contrast between Screaming Skull and Ushapti Bone, I wanted to go brighter. And the only other whites that I had was White Scar, which I knew was going to be a little bit too bright to be the only highlight, was Corax White. And I tried the Corax White on my Deathwing Knight here, so let me pull that picture up. And if you see on his right foot, you know, where I started, I immediately knew like this is not going to work out. So I stopped right there, and I kind of went back to the drawing board. And I settled on, you know, I needed a white bonish color, you know, in the same vein. So, you know, I opened up the book and I was looking at the painting recommendation from the book, not from the Citadel app, but from the book that comes with the Dark Angels supplement, Codex supplement. And you'll see that they say just, you know, spray them down with wraithbone and use that as your base coat all around. Then you slather Seraphim Sepia all over this guy, and then you go back again with the wraithbone as your edge highlight. So I'm gonna give wraithbone a try over Screaming Skull to see if that's a you know, just that extra brightness that I was looking for, to get a different to get a contrast between Ushapti Bone and you know, and the edge highlight. So I'm going to be putting that down on this guy here, and that's why I was kind of running out to the store and stuff like that, and you know, where I found this paint cup thing, and you know, got the paint and the new brush. And the reason I got a new brush here is these are both, here's a picture, these are both small layer brushes from Citadel, and as you can see, one has definitely been put through the paces, and that is 100%, you know, like rookie mistakes, you know, user error. I did not know when I first started painting how important it was to wash your brush often as possible. You know, basically you never want to let this acrylic paint dry up in the ferrule area of the brush. And when I started out painting these guys, I didn't know that this was such a big deal. And I used the small layer brush for pretty much everything because, you know, I didn't really have the skill set developed, and I'm still learning. But when I started out with my first, you know, green Space Marine, I used that small layer brush for everything, you know, the edge highlighting. And, you know, I had a base brush, but, you know, I was being a little too stingy, or not stingy, but like cautious on how much paint I was putting and where. So I ended up using the small layer brush for like everything, and I wasn't properly cleaning it, and that's why you can see in the picture that I'll bring back up, you know, the one on the left is, it's done. You know, it was frayed, so I looked up videos on how to straighten out your brush, and it said, oh, you might have to snip the ones that just won't line back up. And so I snipped some hairs, and yeah, you know, the brush, it's still, I still use it, I still do edge highlighting with it, but it definitely lost its, you know, its pointed tip. And so I do have a new small layer brush, and you can definitely tell that it holds a better point, and it also has more hairs to hold paint and stuff. So I just know, you know, now that I've come this far, that it's gonna work out a little bit better. So yeah, that's where I'm at with these guys, the Deathwing Knight. The first one is coming up. I ended up choosing the Great Mace Power Maul instead of the Great Sword. This is going to be the Sergeant of the Deathwing Knights. And yeah, so I went with the mace because, you know, my Blade Guard veterans all have swords, so I figured with the Deathwing Knights I would do 3 maces and 2 swords, you know, to, you know, add a little bit of variety. And so yeah, let's get back to this gameplay. Alright, where are we at? Waiting the bomb deployment. Okay, so I was looking down at my minis here, so I wasn't paying attention to what transition on the screen, but I believe we had a Neuranthrope earlier in the match, and I think we're going to fight a Carnifex later on too, if we haven't already. But right here, man, look at my health. My health is so low, and you do not want to see a bunch of those little guys on your screen. And they took out Riz there, Arquez. So with this mission, remember, if you're not getting executions, you will start losing health, or armor at least. And I was pretty stressing out right here because I wanted at least 1 armor cell going into the next engagement, because what I wouldn't want to have happen is, you know, these little gaunts here to get 1 little spray off on me and be enough to kill me. And so that execute right there was a godsend. You know, I got that little bit of health back, but I got the armor cell back, and I'm going to avoid the penalty of not having execute. Now, that was a lucky dodge. I'm telling you right now, that was such a lucky dodge. I remember that. I didn't actually dodge from the because of the enemy. I was dodging because I was just spamming the space bar after I picked up the ammo there. You know, out of a bad habit, I just started pressing space to roll away, and it just so happened to line up with that dodge. Now, I do get a couple of those in this match, and you know, it was cool because my wife was sitting there over my shoulder watching the game, and she was like, "Oh, you're good. You're getting good at this." And oh yeah, of course I am. But no, really, that first dodge was lucky. But I will get another one with a Lictor later on, and I'm pretty proud of that one because that was my actual reflex kicking in for seeing the orange. The orange ridicule pop-up prompt. I'm gonna race this guy. he realized I was gonna win, so he went for the boxes. And then I kind of regret it because I was like, oh, those little armor things would have been great right now. Execute. I don't know if those blue executes count versus, you know, having to run up to an enemy who's hit the health threshold and you have to execute that way. But since I saw I got health back, I'm assuming it's gonna count. Another thing is I did take the flamer here, or the Melta rifle for the Vanguard, and that was because one of the things that I noticed in my previous map that I cut away from was that the Gaunts were kind of surrounding us pretty often, and that's what killed us. You know, we're just being overwhelmed by the numbers of the enemy down there, especially since, you know, that Neuranthrope was creating those little fields, you know, those little AoE attacks that you jump out of. So my idea with the Melta was that would be enough to, you know, take care of waves of Gaunts if they gathered up on me like that again. Now, luckily in this mission with these two teammates, it never really became a problem. These guys were ready to kill anything and everything in front of them, and we kept the numbers thinned out really well. Also, the Tech Marine, I noticed, was really using his what's that thing called, the servo gun. Like when it kicked in, like you could tell. Like, there's a moment or two in this game where you'll see that, like, pretty much, or that's the one that my instincts kicked in right there for that one, and I got the dodge. I think I got like all my health back here plus the armor. Yeah, I said thank you because I feel like he could have took that execute, you know. I feel like he let me have it, even though I got that good dodge. You know, he did a lot of the damage. But no, yeah, you'll see that the Tech Marine, you know, he really uses his servo gun effectively. There's times when, you know, he takes down like 4 or 5 Majuras to the execute range, and in the name of this game right here, where you get the executes for health and to stop the debuff, you know, it's pretty helpful.
Facility. Run distraction efforts as long as you can. I will fight you.
Yeah, we're already coming up to the end here.
I will hold you.
Now this is the farthest I've gotten, you know, out of the 3 runs that it took me to get this footage. This was the farthest I got, and with the pace and the overall like feeling, I was like, okay, yeah, this is gonna happen. You know, we're gonna get this one. So that being said, I wasn't really worried when my health would drop too low. I definitely try to dial back how many executes I was taking. I didn't want to be that guy. I kind of caught myself, you know, midway through that I was kind of being a dick that way. Oh, sorry for the language. That you know, I was kind of being greedy, and I tried to slow down on that. With my Vanguard setup too, I also have the ability to get an armor cell back every time I use the grappling hook. So that was always kind of in the pocket as well. I got rid of that just because it has happened before where, you know, you're fighting for position, you're rolling, and then you hit one of those cans and you're just not out of range and it takes you down, especially when you have such low health because of the debuff. You know, the Melta actually has pretty good range.
Let the foul creatures
Now that it's, when you think about it, shooting down like that. Check this out. Check this out. Bam. And it was one of those things that I saw coming from a mile away. I just didn't realize how fast they would travel through that space of playable area and unplayable area. So that was a little embarrassing. You know, I was ready to dodge. I anticipated those things coming a lot later. You know. So I was gonna delay my dodge, and nope, they like teleported to me. It felt like. So I did the grapple on him before he turned red, and I felt kind of bad about that because maybe the teammate was kind of setting it up for himself. But I had already hit the button, you know, before he turned red, and he took, I guess, that little bit of damage before I put him in execute range. Hitting the gas again. Teammates was on it. Sometimes you hit that gas and the teammates, they're just like, what?
The swarm has almost fully committed. Be ready for my mark.
I think this is it. Yeah, you know, the enemies were dying pretty fast. I don't know if this is on a timer or if it depends on how fast you defeat the waves. But as you can see, we're just waiting at this point. No new enemies are spawning as of yet. And there you go. Guy hits the button right away. And then we get the enemies spawning in. And this is what I'm talking about. Like, this group is such a dominant group. They said no, clear the mission. Hell no, we got stuff to do. And I think at a certain point, all three of us are killing them. Yeah, look at all three of us are killing a zoanthrope. I just felt like, yep, this was the one. Well, yeah, that's the end of the mission. You know, at the end there, I feel like we had a really dominating performance besides my little hiccup with those, you know, in my opinion, teleporting balls. But yeah, so more Deathwing Knight updates, you know, coming. And thank you for watching. I'll let you know on my next video how the wraithbone highlights going. See you next time.